When Kerala floods, the Chief Minister's response becomes a real test. Kerala is once again in the grip of heavy rain, flooding, and landslides. The situation may not yet be comparable to the catastrophic floods of 2018. The dams are, for now, well below dangerous levels. But the political storm around the government's handling of the crisis is already gathering pace. And at the center of that storm is Chief Minister V.D. Satheesan. Because every crisis comes with a political comparison. And for Satheesan, that comparison is inevitably with Pinarayi Vijayan, a Chief Minister who, whatever the political criticism against him, came to be known for his hands-on approach to disaster management. The opposition is now asking a simple question. Where was V.D. Satheesan when Kerala was going under? To understand why this question is gaining traction, go back to August 2018. The devastating floods of 2018 did not suddenly arrive on 14th August. There were warning signs. Rain had been relentless, reservoirs were filling up, and the situation was clearly deteriorating. On 10th August, as the scale of the disaster began to become apparent, the then Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan cancelled his official programs and took direct charge of emergency response from Thiruvananthapuram. The message was clear. The Chief Minister was staying back. The government machinery had to move, and the Chief Minister would be at the center of that response. But Pinarayi's crisis management was not only about administrative decisions, it was about communication. At a time when people were frightened and rumors were spreading, his media briefings, press conferences became a source of reassurance. He spoke directly to the public, explained what was happening, gave updates on rescue and relief operations, and repeatedly told people not to panic. One of the messages associated with his flood response was a call to face the crisis together. Let's all get into action hand in hand. That was the political language of that moment. The Chief Minister was not simply reporting what the government was doing, he was projecting himself as the face of the response. The LDF is now reminding people of another decision Pinarayi Vijayan took during those floods. He had been scheduled to travel to the United States on 18th August 2018 for cancer treatment. But as the flood situation worsened, he postponed the trip. The argument from the left today is not simply that Pinarayi cancelled programs. It is that the Chief Minister's physical presence at the control center became part of the government's crisis management strategy. And that image of Pinarayi sitting through the crisis, coordinating the response and keeping the administration focused became one of the defining political images of the 2018 floods. That image would become even more powerful 3 years later. During the COVID pandemic, Pinarayi Vijayan's daily press conference became almost ritualistic. Every evening, people waited for the Chief Minister's briefing. The numbers were announced, restrictions were explained, decisions were defended. The public was told what the government knew and what it was doing. For the supporters of the government, it demonstrated competence and consistency. Even many of his political opponents acknowledged the effectiveness of that communication strategy. Those daily briefings helped build an image of Pinarayi as a Chief Minister who was present, accessible, and in control during a crisis. And that image became an important part of the political narrative that preceded the LDF's historic re-election in 2021. Now, V.D. Satheesan is facing his own first major test, and the contrast could not have come at a more politically sensitive time. The controversy began with a helicopter. On 31st July, Satheesan travelled to Kochi in a state-rented helicopter to visit his ailing father-in-law. The government has its explanation, but the opposition has raised questions over the use of a government arranged helicopter for what it describes as a private visit, particularly because the Chief Minister had no official program scheduled in Kochi that day. The trip itself was disrupted twice because of bad weather, and that ironically brought even more attention to the helicopter journey. Then came the next day. Heavy rain was continuing. Landslides and flooding were being reported in different parts of the state. And the opposition alleged that the Chief Minister was at a private luncheon at an IUML leader's home in Ponnani. The government's response is that Satheesan was not detached from the crisis. It says he remained in constant touch with officials overseeing rescue and relief operations. That is an important distinction, because the question is not whether a Chief Minister can ever leave the capital during a disaster. Of course he can. The question is about optics, priorities and leadership. And then came another image that gave the opposition more ammunition. As the rain and flood situation intensified, Satheesan was seen inaugurating a jewellery shop in Kochi. The opposition seized on the optics once again. A Chief Minister attending a jewellery inauguration while parts of Kerala were struggling with floods and landslides. The government may argue that he was monitoring the situation. The opposition says the Chief Minister should have been visibly leading the disaster response. And this is where the Pinarayi comparison becomes politically potent. Because Pinarayi Vijayan had deliberately built an image of crisis management. In 2018, he cancelled programs. He took charge of the emergency response. He postponed his US trip for medical treatment. He communicated directly with the public through regular media briefings. During COVID, he turned those daily briefings into a powerful instrument of reassurance and political communication, and obviously an election later into an election strategy. Now Satheesan is being judged against that benchmark, but there is another side to this story. A government cannot be judged only by photographs. A Chief Minister does not necessarily have to sit in a control room 24/7 for the administration to function. If Satheesan was indeed in constant communication with officials, if the rescue machinery was functioning, if relief operations were moving, then that too has to be taken into account. But politics is not only about what happens, it is also about what people see. And in a disaster, leadership is as much about presence as it is about instructions. That's why the images of the helicopter, the luncheon and the jewellery inauguration are proving politically damaging for VD Satheesan. The opposition has already begun constructing a narrative. Pinarayi stayed back when Kerala was drowning, Satheesan went out when Kerala was drowning. That is a powerful political line. But whether it is a fair comparison is another question. The 2018 floods were an unprecedented catastrophe. The present situation, at least for now, is not on that scale. The dams are not facing the kind of extreme pressure Kerala saw in 2018. The government can legitimately argue that the situation is different, but that does not eliminate the political test. Because this is the first major natural disaster faced by the Satheesan government. And disaster management was one area where the previous government had built considerable political capital. The new government is now discovering how difficult it is to inherit not just power but expectations. The VD Satheesan government may eventually succeed in managing the rain crisis on the ground, but it is already fighting another crisis, one of perception. The opposition is asking whether the Chief Minister understood the moment. The government says he was monitoring the situation and coordinating with officials. Between those two claims lies the real test of leadership.